So hi, my name is Cujo. Today I just wanted to hop in front of the mic and talk about a concept called essentialism. Oh shit, where's the book? Oh no, I forgot his name. Okay, it is called Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less by Greg McKeown. I hope I said his name right too. I have this thing where I can't pronounce names, I feel like, but anyway, essentialism actually is very similar to like the Tao from China or Zen and Buddha. Essentialism is in of itself a contradiction. Basically, doing less things is allowing for more to happen in those things. To boil it down, you become more effective when you do less. I had a teacher back in high school that taught me a lot about duality, and he talked about how most things in of itself is a contradiction, which I think he put me on the, like, not intentionally, I think he put me on the Tao type stuff, or like Buddhism, and Zen, and a lot of Eastern philosophies and religion, but essentialism is very similar to that. My teacher from high school would present a lot of arguments that from both sides they had pros and cons, and it was very gray. He never told you what to think, but he allowed a lot of space for there to be discussion, and there was always like pros and cons to all the answers that we provided, which essentially points to there's not really a right answer. You just need to do what's best for you. There was also a day in his class. Oh my gosh, there's a fly. Hold on. I just spooked him away. There was one day that this teacher sat us all down and told each and every one of us that he could tell which ones of us were going to go to college and which ones were not going to go to college, and which ones would probably succeed in life and which ones would probably not succeed, which arguably is not good for a teacher to do, but I honestly side with him and I see where he was coming from. A lot of your attitude and behavior will dictate the trajectory of your life, and this was something that he was trying to point to indirectly, I think. One of my favorite books, Richest in Babylon, talks about this merchant who originally started as a slave, but he started as a slave with a really good attitude, and because he had that good attitude and always triumphed and had a smile on his face in front of adversity, it allowed him to eventually work up to his slave owners liking him, saving him, and then breaking the tomb that made him a slave, basically. So it gave him his freedom, and he chooses to become a merchant with his freedom, basically doing the same thing that he was doing as a slave, but just on a wider scale. And there's a motivational speaker also named Earl Nightingale. He talks about a lot of how attitude will either make or break your future. If you have a good attitude, then good things are going to come your way, and if you have a bad attitude, it's just going to be a negative spiraling trajectory downwards, compared to like if you have a good attitude, then it's upwards. It's not really how much you know, what your credentials are, it's how you show up for the work that you do and the energy that you're providing out there into the world. It's your attitude. What does this have to do with essentialism? Well, like I said, essentialism, the disciplined pursuit of doing less, is allowing for more focus in the things that you actually care about. I would recommend people to pick up this book if they're curious about essentialism as a philosophy. Typically in our modern day, corporations and industries will encourage you to work, get the most out of your career, get the most out of your education. But if you're going non-stop, go all the time, you don't allow time for rest, and you don't allow time for sleep and play. And Essentialism is a book that argues sleep and play mostly. Being able to say no to a lot more allows you to be extremely honed in focus on things you say yes to, which should be few and far between. Why is time for play and time for sleep so important? Well, obviously, if you're very well rested, you don't have to deal with the grogginess and sluggishness of feeling tired. Your body is completely healed and rested, ready for the day to tackle things that come across you with full presence, and not distracted by the sluggishness of your body and thinking, oh, I'm so tired, because I've definitely had days like that. And why is time for play so important? To spend time in a recreational way is actually where most inspiration and most of your creative energy will come from. I have a really good example. If you happen to know what EMDR therapy is, I'll give just a brief overview of it. EMDR is pretty much a therapy where a therapist will sit across from a patient and hold up fingers in front of the patient and move the fingers around. You're supposed to focus your eyes on the fingers, and then as you focus on the fingers, the therapist tells you to recall events from trauma, and when you begin to get lost in the thoughts and they start to evoke emotion, the therapist will tell you to focus on the fingers and reground you on the fingers And because your eyes move during EMDR, it grounds you in the present while also recalling the past, basically a balance between both, and you don't get lost in the thoughts. So they pretty much discovered that they didn't have to use talk therapy to actually heal trauma. They could just tell you to recall thoughts of trauma and then hold fingers up in front of you because, oh man, I'm kind of opening up a can of worms. But during sleep, you have a phase in your sleep called REM sleep. It's called rapid eye movement sleep. And during this phase of sleep, your brain basically processes memories, things that happen throughout the day, and it determines whether to keep them in like long-term memory or they can just trash them. They theorize with trauma, it doesn't get properly processed through REM sleep, so then the thoughts will constantly evoke emotions if thought of consciously throughout the day. Okay, can of worms over. So now you know what REM sleep does, and now you know what EMDR is. If you have any questions about that, please ask me in the comments. But the reason that I say play is so important is because EMDR was discovered during a form of recreation or play. So in 1987, Francine Shapiro, she was actually just walking through a park thinking about stuff that really troubled her in her past, while she was rapidly moving her eyes between things in the park. While she was doing that, she noticed in the present moment that when she would get recalled back to the present by something moving in the park, it would decrease the emotions that she was feeling from the thoughts that she was thinking of. And her theory ended up being because of the movement of her eyes back and forth between the things in the park, it actually desensitized the emotion that she was feeling, which tied to REM sleep. But if she hadn't had that moment of recreation, a moment of just spending time with herself in the park, we wouldn't have EMDR. If you spend a lot of recreational time just thinking, this is where the problem solving comes. If you're constantly working nonstop, you can't problem solve. So essentialism is about doing the work that is necessary, but to give yourself ample time to decide what you can do with that time of work that you're giving yourself. It should not be all day. What makes humans strong is our capacity to problem solve and not be like workhorses. We don't have to be like workhorses. So I encourage you to cut things from your life, impulse buying, things that you own that you don't use that much, and just limit it to the bare essentials. Pick up this book, Essentialism by Greg McKeown. I want the most for people. I want them to be educated on their own problem solving. And I believe that this is my mission. To give you just a little bit of background before I head out, I was raised in an environment that really valued hard work in terms of physical labor or just doing things with your hands. And this is not to bash that. That is very important, and I did learn some of it, and I'm very grateful for it. But in my personal opinion, I should do the least amount possible for the maximum benefit for myself and other people. It's not worth straining the self or straining others with the work that we do. So we should try to just do the essentials, the most important, and we'll end up doing more as a result of it. We'll spend less time on projects, more on finishing them, and more on getting a straightforward, simple message that people can understand, or simple work that lasts for a lot longer than other work that can be too complex or hard to digest. This is stuff I care about a lot, so I can feel myself like being very passionate about it. But essentialism is very much like Tao, or very much like Zen. There's good in the bad, and there's bad in the good. So if you do more, you're going to end up doing less. So just do less so you're able to do more. It's a weird kind of contradicting thing, but that's the spirit of Eastern philosophy. So it's on course for Cujo. But I think that's all I have here for you. If you liked it, leave a like, subscribe. Yeah, smash that like button, hit subscribe, post 20 comments, and freaking, I don't know, dude, do what you want to do. Really, thank you for taking the time to watch and listen to this. I feel like this idea could be a bit more harder to digest, and I kind of jump around a lot with opening up cans of worms and then just leaving them there. I'm not really burying too deep into these, so if you want any clarifications, I can totally make a separate video on topics like this. Like maybe I could dive deeper into EMDR, I could dive deeper into essentialism itself, or what my teacher had taught me. In my mind, these are all linked together. Attitude is linked with essentialism, because if you strain yourself with too much work, then your attitude is going to end up being bad, and you're just going to do all the work poorly. So take the least amount of work that you have to do on possible so you can maintain a good attitude and just live a good life. And you'll be the most effective in that time that you work because of your good attitude. But yeah, thanks again for taking the time to listen to my commentary. I love you all. I'm gonna bounce, so goodbye now. Now I'm on to the next. don't make music as a cash check. Make a beat, now I'm on to the next.